All right, welcome to Words of Wisdom from King Solomon. We are in part 5. Unfortunately, last week, part 4, we had some complications, and we do not have part 4. So we're back live again tonight, hopefully with no complications, and we will continue on from there. So, as we talk about our wise relationships, let's get back into the last one before we move on to other topics from the book of Proverbs. And tonight we're going to talk about the contentious person. So if you want to follow along, turn to Proverbs 21. This will help you follow. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 19, Solomon writes this: "Better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman." Now we know that not just a woman, but any person, and that's what we're dealing with here. And so contentious, the word in the Hebrew, means causing or likely to cause disagreements. So people are disagreeable or controversy, provoking arguments. It's also to plead one's case or to contend, and it also means to quarrel or to argue. Quarrel means to argue. So this contentious person, first of all, is kind of like a nagging wife. We talked about that a little bit last week. But the nagging wife, they just won't stop talking. They like to talk a lot. They stir up trouble. They like to argue just to argue because they just want to argue. In Proverbs 27, verse 15, Solomon says, "A continual dripping on a rainy day and a quarrelsome wife are alike." That's like the nagging person. They just irritate you just to irritate you. They constantly want to nag you. They argue just to argue. I mean, if it's quiet in the room, they've got to stir something up because it's quiet. Sometimes they just don't like peace and quiet. I think they like to hear themselves talk. And these are the people that talk way too much. And Proverbs talks about that. In Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19, Solomon says, "In the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise." Proverbs 21:23. "Whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from troubles." Sometimes you just need to learn to keep your mouth shut. But some people can't. They just have to talk. They have to talk. Proverbs 13:3, Solomon says, "He who guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips shall have destruction." These are the people that talk so much. They're more likely to sin. They're more likely to become gossips. They're more likely to, the more you talk, the more you're going to fall into some type of destruction. And that's what Solomon's trying to write. James says in James 3:8, "But no man can tame the tongue. It's an unruly evil, and it's full of deadly poison." This is something that we have to learn to try to control. James talks about putting bits in horses' mouths, and you can make that big horse go wherever you want. And ships are controlled by just a little rudder, the old school ships. And so turn this big, huge ship, but we can't control just a little, our mouths. And a lot of people love to talk way too much. So the less you talk, the less likely you are to spew out some type of poison. And so we want to be careful about what we say. And you could say that people that love to talk a lot is just idle talk for the most part. And that's sometimes what gossip is. It's just a bunch of idle talk. And it's kind of funny because Solomon says in Proverbs 14:23, "In all labor there's profit, but idle chatter, it just leads only to poverty." Don't just talk about something, do something about it. But a lot of people just like to talk, just to hear themselves talk. Which is important because when Jesus talks about the judgment to come, he says in Matthew 12:36, "But I say to you that every idle word that men speak, they will give an account of it on the day of judgment." Every useless word that people say, they will definitely give an account on the day of judgment. That's scary, isn't it? How many useless things have we said? Well, that's not, thank goodness we don't keep a record. Proverbs 20:19, Solomon says, "He who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets, and therefore do not associate with one who flatters with their lips. Don't hang around people that talk too much. Don't hang around smooth talkers. Don't hang around gossips. Don't hang around these people, because it's going to be your destruction. It is a bad influence on us for sure, because talking too much it means you're not a good listener, right? If you talk too much, that means you're not listening to people. And sometimes these people, man, Proverbs 18:13 says this: he who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. If you don't have all the information, don't answer a matter. But the problem is that people are so quick to jump in that they've identified the problem, they've identified the solution, they've got the ridicule, and before you've just said 2 words, and they're already giving you what the problem is, what the answer is, and you haven't even given them all the information yet. And so people are just so quick to talk just to talk so that they can talk. That's not listening. So we need to be careful that, we listen to people. Let them finish their complete sentences before we answer a matter. And that's because most of the time we want to talk. People like to talk. You ever have those friends that you can't get a word in edgewise? Right? I mean, we all do. You just want to be like, hey, did you? Oh, yeah, but it's like, whoa, hey, hang on, man. Let me tell you my story. But there's always those people that just won't let you speak. And it can be dangerous. Don't be too quick to talk. Solomon says in Proverbs 29:20, do you see a man hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him. So we talk about the 3 types of people in Proverbs: the wise, the simple, and the fool. And the fool is always, of course, somebody who's moving away from God. But Solomon says a man who is quick to have words, there's more hope for a fool than for this guy. So you got to be careful about speaking too much. And by the way, James says the same thing. Let every man be swift to hear and slow to speak. So we shouldn't be quick to react. We should listen to everything everybody has to say before you give your response. And that is a good biblical thing. Be a good listener. Be quick to hear and slow to speak, not quick to speak. Excessive talk leads to gossip, which could become idle chatter. It ruins your listening skills. It turns into flattery or smooth talk, as Solomon says. And it can lead to profanity. Now this one, in the workplace, I hear not my workplace, but I hope not in my workplace, because that's it. But other workplaces that you go to, and we visit some places, but I tell you what, the F-bomb is dropped all the time. And I think sometimes people come up with longer sentences just to put that word in there. Just to hear that word. I'm like, oh, that F and N, F and N, F and M, F and M. And they just talk they just talk too much just so they can get that word in. Like 50 times in a sentence. It's like, holy mackerel, how many times can you say that word? That's ridiculous. And what happens is half the time they don't have no clue what they're saying. Makes them sound very ignorant because they have a limited vocabulary. Only a couple words they're using. So, must not be well educated. And eventually it's going to lead to sin and destruction. And so we need to keep track of what we say, because it could be a problem. Now, so don't talk too much. That can lead to sin, leads to gossip, leads to idle chatter. So don't talk too much. Back to Proverbs chapter 21, verse 19. We're going to talk about this for the remainder of it. This person from Proverbs 21:19, it's better to live in a desert land than with a contentious and vexing woman. Now, we already give you what contentious is. Somebody likes to argue, somebody likes to talk, just to give it that. But here's one. We talk about the desert. Desert is a dry place. It's just, nobody wants to live in a dry, worn-out place. But these people, it's better to live there than to be around these people. These are chronic complainers. We all know them. They're around everywhere. They're in the workplace. They're in the homes. They're in their families. They're in your friends. Just these people that they suck the life out of you. And they're complaining. They like to argue for whatever reason. They just want to stir up trouble. They like to get angry. And so they'll just complain. And then if you shut them off, they have to argue. They have to continue with all these long words just so that they can get some type of response out of you. They can't just let it be. It's like peacemakers. Jesus says in Matthew 5, blessed are the peacemakers, right? But these people are not peacemakers. They got to stir up. They live around chaos. For whatever reason, that's where they live. Complainers are kind of like politicians. Politicians do a lot of complaining about what other people do. But they have no complaints themselves, right? What do the people in Washington have to complain about? They're all millionaires. They got many homes. They can go and do whatever they want on the taxpayer's dime. What do they have to complain about? But they'll complain about what people do in order to stir up people to get their vote. It's a complaining thing. And Jude dresses these type of false teachers. That's what he's talking about, actually. In Jude, there's only one chapter, but verse 16, he says, these are grumblers. Grumblers is another word for complainers. They find fault, following after their own lust. They speak arrogantly or pridefully, flattering people. There's smooth talk for the sake of gaining advantage over them. That is our politicians, so to speak, if you will. Proverbs 23:29. Solomon says, who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaining? Now, in this particular passage, he's actually talking about the drunk person, but it's whatever you allow to control you. And all these things will control you. When you begin to complain, you'll have woe, you'll have sorrow, you'll have contention. That's all you'll do, is you'll argue and you'll complain, and you become bitter. That's why Solomon says it's better to live in the wilderness than with a contentious person. Because they'll suck the life out of you. It'll make you dry and wibbled up, you know? It's a shame. But some complainers are like gossips. They'll suck the life out of you. Hey, man, how you doing today? It's good to see you. And then they turn into Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Well, let me tell you. Now, this is going... Oh, hey, God bless. Have a great day. I'm out of here. I mean, they're just... Oh. Hey, how you doing today? Well, let me tell you. Wow, do you ever have a good day? Dale was talking about today. He said, this is the day the Lord has made. We should rejoice and be glad in it. But it's raining and it's cold. So, who cares? We have the ability to come and worship the Lord. What a great day. Praise God. But it's all in how you look at it. It's your response, not the circumstance. It's your response to it. But we tend to get wilderness. We get dry and cracked up in the old desert, and that becomes our attitude. And we just complain. So for whatever reason, God hates complaining very, very, very much. You remember Israel when they were in the wilderness? You know why they were not allowed to go into the promised land? Because they complained. You remember that? Paul uses that as an example to remind us, don't become complainers. Matter of fact, in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 10 through 11, Paul says, don't grumble as some of them did, and they were destroyed by the destroyer. And all these things happened to them. They're examples. They were written for our learning, upon whom the ends of the age have come. 40 years they wandered in the wilderness, and God killed them off. Every person from 20 years old and older. Because why? God said, go take the land. And you know what they did? They complained. Well, but there's giants there. We look like grasshoppers. And God said, fine, no problem. You're done. I'm going to take another generation and put them in there. You guys wander around the wilderness, die off. You're done. What a shame. Paul says this in Philippians 2:14. Do all things without complaining and disputing. That's how we should live our lives. Stop complaining, stop arguing, stop disputing with one another. Complaining and arguing is defined as this: a verbal expression of one's dissatisfaction with their circumstances. That's what a complaint is. Somebody's not happy about their lot in life or whatever they're getting. The word arguing from the Greek is dialogismos. And you probably hear the word dialogue in that. And that's where we get the word dialogue. So it's also translated arguing, murmuring, complaining, grumbling. All those words are the same. And it describes this. It describes the inner reasoning that we do in our own minds and the outer reasoning that we complain with our mouths. Does that make sense? So we're discontent with whatever life throws at us. So we complain about it in our minds. And then, when you think about something too much, guess what you do? Out of the abundance of the heart, the what? Mouth speaks. Absolutely. So when you think about something so much, it comes right out the mouth. So we think about, our lot is not great, and so we just complain and we murmur and we just let it come out. We get diarrhea of the mouth, and then we become a chronic complainer. Woe is me. Then you become Eeyore. Oh, it's raining out there. I got to go to church. Listen to the pastor. I'm tired. I'm telling you. Man, it's crazy. So when we think about complaining, we're like, oh, that's just a little teeny tiny little sin. And it's not. It's a huge, huge big sin that God destroyed most of his nation before they were allowed to go into the promised land. And Hebrews says in chapter 12, verse 15, don't let a root of bitterness spring up, cause trouble, and it will defile you. And then you will sin because of the root of bitterness that you have allowed to get up into. Bitterness and complaining is contagious, right? We talk about influence, right? 1 Corinthians 15:33. Bad company corrupts good habits, right? So when you hang around a chronic complainer, what happens to your attitude? Yeah. A lot of times when we talk about, it blinds us to God's peace. At salvation, we have peace with God. But then we have the peace of God. And these things begin to blind us to God's peace, and we lose the joy of our salvation, like David says in Psalm 51. But it can spread to other people. What's that old saying? Misery loves company, right? And boy, do they love company. They want to have a big party with company. And misery loves it. And so it spreads through family. It spreads through friends. And then probably the biggest one I would say is the workplace. And that's what people do. The employees complain about the management complains about the employees. And then you know what? When you're just coming in doing your job, and then you get around these people that chronically complain all day, and you're just like, oh yeah, well, gosh, he does do that, doesn't he? Well, yeah, I did see him do that. Oh my gosh, he is a horrible manager, isn't he? Oh my goodness. And that's all you do. And then you get sucked into it. Right there. Bad company corrupts good habits. You got to protect your heart and mind. You got to protect yourself. Man, you will suck the life out of you. And you'll become dried and withered up in the wilderness, just like Israel did, just like a lot of people get. And guess what? You become old, bitter, and you may be in your 20s. That's just how it happens. And you just complain, and you just get this root of bitterness that grows inside. And we don't need that. It goes into organizations, and it hits the church. When it hits the church, it'll absolutely destroy or hinder your spiritual growth. Complaining is a horrible one to destroy your growth. We need to deal with that so that we can be growing. And it'll make you like this. Proverbs 17:22, Solomon said, a merry heart does good like a medicine. But you know what? When you get that root of bitterness in there, a broken spirit, it'll dry your bones. And that's all you do is find fault. You complain. You'll argue with people just to argue. And it makes you miserable. So we got to get rid of complaining. We need to get rid of it. Peter says in 1 Peter 4:9, show hospitality to one another without grumbling. Remember the word hospitality? We talked about it on a Sunday morning. It means the love of strangers, or to love strangers. We should, hey, you ain't done yet, are you? You got all the answers done? That's awesome. Sorry, now I lost my place. You threw me off, Dale. Quit it. There's only 7 on there. Oh, is there 8? Oh, I forgot. I did do the paper. We're to show hospitality to one another without grumbling. And so when we do that, not only is it in our hearts, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, we ought to be careful of what we say. In Ephesians 4:29, Paul said, let no corrupt talk come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for building up, as it fits the occasion, that it may give grace to the hearer. So if you ain't got something nice to say about somebody, don't say anything, right? And we ought to learn those principles, because we need to have an attitude of thanksgiving. That's what Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Give thanks in all circumstances. How many circumstances? All circumstances. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Do you know it doesn't matter what happens to you? You can still give thanks to God in those circumstances. Do you realize that? Isn't that awesome? That should be a cause to thanks. And that's what he's saying. In every of life's circumstances, even though the situation may not be good. Like I remember when my father was dying of pancreatic cancer. That was not good. And I come across that verse and I said, Lord, I can't give you thanks. But then when you stop and you think of the circumstances, he got saved, he's gone to heaven, and I will join him one day because of the promise the Bible gives. What a greater way to give thanks. Thank you, Lord. I'm sorry for doubting you. I can still give you thanks. In every of life's circumstances, you can still give thanks. That's the whole idea. So what happens is that people don't like their circumstances. They get mad. They make bad choices. Their life is miserable because they make bad choices. And guess who they take it out on? God. Solomon says in Proverbs 19:3, when a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. Why'd you allow this, God? Well, why is my life like this, God? Why'd you allow this, God? Like it's his fault? Most of the time, we put ourselves into these situations, and then we blame God about it. Don't worry about the things in this life. We get so caught up in the American dream. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Don't we do that? And we begin to try to live the American dream and then mix that in with the gospel, and God wants to bless you and make you rich and give you all this stuff in this life. And the only thing that's guaranteed is salvation. Amen? I mean, right? They say, well, you have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay taxes. The only thing you have to do is die, unless the rapture happens. And then even then you don't have to die, because we'll be gone. We'll be changed in the moment, the twinkling of an eye. And they say, well, God wants to bless you. Look at Lazarus. Remember the rich man of Lazarus? What did Lazarus have? Sores. Didn't even have enough food from the crumbs from the king's table. And the dogs came and licked his sores, which would have made him hurt and absolutely bleed and make him horrible. But then when eternity called, the rich man was in the not-so-good place, and Lazarus was in paradise. Isn't that amazing? And how long is eternity compared to this life? James says our life is nothing more than a vapor trail. Here today, gone tomorrow. It's amazing. John says this in 1 John 2:15-17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that's in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, it's not of the Father, but it's of the world. And the world is passing away, and all of the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. Man, all this stuff in the world is going to be gone. And we're going to be in eternity. And what are you going to have to show for it? That's the whole idea. Circumstances only last for a moment. But God has a plan and a purpose for everything. And I think we forget that. In Romans 8:28, it says, we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those that are called according to his purpose. And you know what we do? We take that verse out of context, one of the biggest ones that is taken out of context, and we say, well, God's going to work this circumstance out for my good. What is the good he's going to work it out? He goes on to say that in verse 29. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. God is going to work out your circumstances so that you look more like Christ. Amen? That's the good that it's going to work out. You're going to look more like Jesus. Well, Jesus went through trials. Yep, so you're going to. And in the end result, it's going to work out for your good because you're going to look more like Jesus. Amen? See, we kind of combine worldly stuff, and we need to be kingdom-minded because it's a totally different story sometimes. All right, back to the contentious person. Proverbs 21, verse 9. It says, better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. People love to talk. They love to complain. They will make you miserable. Like I said, they'll suck the life out of you. Paul said in 2 Timothy 2:14, keep reminding God's people of these things. Warn them before God against quarreling about words, idle words, things that are useless. It's of no value and only ruins those who listen. Stop talking about dumb stuff that has absolutely no purpose. Stop arguing about things just to argue. Arguments can't survive without your participation. How do you like that? That's a good one. Arguments can't survive without your participation. Stop participating. Solomon says, where there's no wood, the fire goes out, right? Stop talking, eliminates the problem. 2 Timothy 2:23-24. Paul says, don't have anything to do with foolish and stupid arguments, because you know they just produce quarrels. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everybody. When these dumb, foolish arguments come up, all it does is you just get into arguments. We're supposed to be kind to one another. We're supposed to speak good things to one another. And when you get into dumb arguments, you can't do that, can you? Oh, that's stupid, Eddie. He doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, that moron. We just said that, Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt communication come out of your mouth. Shouldn't have said that. Well, if you knew what he said, you'd know that I'm right. Are you just trying to win an argument to win an argument? But the whole point is, like I said, we need to be loving one another. Paul said in 2 Timothy 2:16, avoid pointless discussions, for people will become more and more ungodly. You know, when people just want to argue just to argue, all it does is create more trouble. It's just creating people to become more and more ungodly. We need to be of unity, of one mind. We need togetherness, right? But when we just continue to argue just to argue over dumb stuff, it'll wear you out. Solomon says, Proverbs 18:2, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his own opinion. And I'm sure you can think of people that they don't want to hear what you have to say. They just want to give you their opinion. And they talk a lot, and they have many words, and all those things come about. And the biggest thing I can tell you is this. Proverbs 15:28, think before you speak. The heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking. The mouth of the wicked overflows with evil words. Wise people think before they speak. And that's what we need to have a little more of. Proverbs 26:17, whoever meddles in a quarrel, not his own, is like one who takes a passing dog by the ears. You take a strange dog by the ears, you're probably going to get bitten. Right? You come across a dog that's chained up and is barking at you, you grab him by the ears, yeah, you're probably going to get bit. And that's the whole thing. Don't meddle in other people's affairs. Mind your own business, basically. I think a lot of people would do good to practice that in our day and age. Proverbs 18:21, Solomon says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, man. You can destroy people, you can destroy nations, you can destroy reputations. That's what ad hominems do. You know what an ad hominem is? Anybody know what an ad hominem is? It's what politicians use. They put down the character of their opponent so that it doesn't matter whether they're telling the truth or not. You'll disregard it. So ad hominem is. They attack the character of somebody regardless if they're telling the truth. So if you can destroy somebody's reputation, you'll destroy them, regardless of whether they're truthful and you're not. And that's what happens, and that's all they do. So life and death are in the power of the tongue. Be careful what you say. You can destroy people. You can separate close friendships. That's what the Bible talks about, destroying relationships. They separate friends. It's what you say. It's what you do. Proverbs 18, verse 19. An offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. Arguments separate friends like a gate locked with bars. When you offend somebody by what you say, I'm telling you, it is harder to win them back than it is to tear down a city with walls around it. It's amazing how that happens. I'm sure you know people. They get offended by something somebody says, and they're gone. They're out of here, never to return, never coming back. It's a shame. And it's harder to win them back than it is to tear down a fortified city. What a shame. We've got to be careful of what we say. The whole point is this. It's better to have good relationships than it is to win some kind of argument. It's better to have good relationships than to complain to somebody that doesn't need to hear your complaint. It's better to have good relationships to wear down and separate friends by a lot of talking or a lot of idle talk or gossip or whatever. Paul says this in Philippians 2:3. Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Think about that. Paul says count somebody else better than you would count yourself. I think we would have a lot better relationships and people would be a lot less toxic. Amen?